On a quiet Sunday morning in 1941, America had no idea it was about to be attacked. The air was calm, the ocean was still, and across the country, life moved at its usual pace. Families were at home enjoying their weekend. Children laughed and played. Church bells rang in peaceful neighborhoods. Far out in the Pacific, at Pearl Harbor, it was just another ordinary morning. Sailors stretched awake in their bunks. Some joked with friends. Others prepared for breakfast. There was no urgency, no fear, no warning. Everything felt safe. But thousands of miles away, deep in the Pacific Ocean, a fleet of ships was moving silently through the water. No lights, no radio signals, no mistakes. They carried hundreds of aircraft and a plan that would soon change the world forever. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe because on this channel, we break down powerful moments in history in a way you've never experienced before. By 1941, World War II had already plunged much of the world into chaos. Across Europe, armies marched across borders, cities fell, and entire nations were taken over. Germany, under Adolf Hitler, was expanding rapidly using speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan was rising as a powerful force, determined to expand its influence across the region. But behind that expansion was a serious problem. Japan lacked one critical resource: oil. Its navy, its air force, and its entire military depended on it. And much of that oil came from the United States. As Japan pushed deeper into China and Southeast Asia, tensions with the United States began to rise. The U.S. saw Japan's actions as a growing threat and responded with economic pressure. Then came the decision that would change everything. The United States cut off oil exports to Japan. This wasn't just a warning. It was a direct threat to Japan's ability to continue its expansion. Without oil, its ships would stop moving, its planes would be grounded, and its empire would begin to collapse. Japanese leaders knew time was running out. They faced a difficult choice: step back and abandon their ambitions, or strike and secure their future by force. Stepping back meant losing everything they had worked for, and so they made a decision that would shock the world. They chose war. But Japan understood something critical. If they were going to fight the United States, they could not win a long war. America had greater industrial power, more resources, and the ability to sustain a prolonged conflict. So Japan needed a powerful advantage from the very beginning. They needed to strike first and strike hard. Their target was Pearl Harbor, a major American naval base in Hawaii and the home of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. If they could destroy the fleet in a single devastating attack, they could delay America's ability to respond and gain valuable time to expand across Asia and the Pacific. The plan was bold and incredibly risky. It involved launching hundreds of aircraft from carriers positioned far out in the ocean and attacking without warning. This kind of operation had never been attempted at such a scale. Success depended entirely on surprise. Japanese pilots trained relentlessly for months. They practiced flying low over water to avoid detection, perfected their bombing techniques, and studied detailed maps of Pearl Harbor. Every movement was calculated. Every second mattered. Meanwhile, a powerful fleet of aircraft carriers assembled in complete secrecy and began its journey across the Pacific Ocean. Radio silence was strictly enforced. No communication, no signals, because if they were discovered, the entire mission would fail. Then came December 7th, 1941. The morning began like any other at Pearl Harbor. The sun rose slowly over the harbor, casting light across the water where battleships rested quietly. Sailors went about their routines, some laughing, some relaxing, some writing letters home. There was no sense of danger, no sign that anything was wrong. Then, in the distance, a faint sound began to grow. The sound of aircraft engines. At first, it seemed unfamiliar but not alarming, but quickly became too loud to ignore. Then suddenly, the sky filled with warplanes. These were not American aircraft. They were Japanese. Without warning, the attack began. Bombs rained down from the sky. Explosions ripped through the harbor, shaking battleships and tearing through airfields. Planes were destroyed before they could even take off. Within minutes, everything changed. Smoke filled the air, fire spread across ships, and men ran in every direction. Alarms blared across the base as soldiers scrambled to respond. Some rushed to man anti-aircraft guns, firing back at the attacking planes. Others tried desperately to rescue their fellow sailors trapped in burning ships. But the attack was fast, precise, and overwhelming. One of the most devastating moments came when the USS Arizona was struck. A powerful bomb pierced through the ship and exploded deep inside, triggering a massive blast. A huge fireball erupted into the sky, and within moments, the ship began to sink. Hundreds of sailors were trapped inside, unable to escape. It became one of the deadliest losses of the entire attack. Across Pearl Harbor, destruction continued. Ships burned uncontrollably, aircraft were destroyed on the ground, and rescue efforts struggled to keep up with the scale of the disaster. The scene was filled with smoke, fire, and chaos, but even in the midst of it, acts of courage stood out. Soldiers risked their lives to save others. Medics worked tirelessly to treat the wounded. Despite the overwhelming situation, many fought back with everything they had. The attack lasted less than 2 hours, but the damage was immense. More than 2,400 Americans were killed, and over 1,000 were injured. Dozens of ships were damaged or destroyed, and hundreds of aircraft were lost. The United States had been caught completely off guard. But as the smoke cleared, something began to change. Shock turned into anger, and anger turned into unity. The following day, Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed the nation, delivering one of the most famous speeches in American history. He described the attack as a date which will live in infamy. Within hours, the United States declared war on Japan. Soon after, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States, bringing America fully into World War II. What followed was a global conflict on an unprecedented scale. Battles were fought across continents, oceans, and skies. Millions of lives were lost, and entire cities were destroyed, but all traced back to that one morning. The attack on Pearl Harbor did more than damage ships and take lives. It changed the course of history. It united a nation, mobilized its people, and set the stage for a war that would reshape the world. All in just a few hours. A quiet Sunday morning that became one of the most unforgettable moments in human history. A moment when everything changed forever. And now, you've come to the end of this story. If you found this video interesting, make sure you subscribe for more powerful stories like this.